Welcome, everyone. It feels like forever since we've had one because it just feels like December took forever. In some ways, and in some ways it went really fast. But yeah, I mean, we were here in November, but so we're back. So today our presenter is John Burns. You may know John from his music, but here's a chance to learn a lot more. John joined UUCC in 2012. Drawn by John Herrick and the music program, to which he remains firmly attached, singing, drumming, alp horns, other odd instruments, lots of things. He is currently a member of the finance team and the community building team, and he co-leads the UUCC gaming group. So look that up. When is the gaming group?
Third Thursdays.
Third Thursdays, just board games, and they meet in here, and it's lots of fun. Raised an Episcopalian, John is going to talk about how his basic religious outlook was established in a New Jersey laundromat. And where the journey has taken him since. So he says, expect more questions than answers, and probably some insight on how to embrace the unknown. Embrace is the February thing. So, welcome, John.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm John Burns. My pronouns are he, his, him, all of those. And as she said, I've been here about 10 years. Before that, I was probably 15 years at PUUC. So I've got a very long track record in the Unitarian Universalist tradition. But three years ago, 5 years ago, if you had said, give this talk, I couldn't have given this talk because I would have told you what I thought you were supposed to hear. It's taken me a long time to figure out what I actually believe and how that sort of come together in a long arc. So if any of you are struggling with that, don't give up. It takes a long time to get there. So I was raised in a very nomadic kind of reality. My dad was a military guy that became a railroad guy. So we moved about every 2 years growing up. My parents tell me I was conceived on a train to Mexico. So I went into this country. I had 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, 2 elementary schools, 2 kindergartens. Wow. All in different states. So I moved a lot and was constantly sort of uprooted. I think that has a lot to do with sort of my journey and things that affect my beliefs. My grandmother was a very intrepid traveler and she liked to have people go with her. So I got bundled off at least once a year to Mexico, to Guatemala, to Europe, whatever. And I very much recall at the time that the religious places I went made a big impression on me. The big cathedrals, the basilicas, the shrines, the temples was a big part of what we went and saw. And they have a certain aura and feel to them. If you've been especially something that's been there a long, long time, it holds something. And that made an impression on me. Probably the biggest thing that I saw that as a kid, I was like, wow, this just kind of shakes my religious things. I was in Guatemala, a big basilica, and it was one that had a shrine for people who had miraculous cures or wanted one, and the whole wall is covered with miniature like crutches and body parts and things that people would give. And they had a great big courtyard out in front of it. And there was a man sort of just dressed in simple clothes, and he was sideways, so the door's over there, and he had 2 blocks of wood in his hand, and he would take a step, go down on his knees, bend over, do a great big arc with his hands, get back up, take a step. And I looked at this and I thought, this guy is going to take more than a day to get to the basilica, which must be where he's going. I just can't imagine anyone in America ever doing that. What kind of faith does it take? And it's kind of like, wow, I've never seen anything like this, and this exists, and I don't know what to make of this. Should we all be doing things like this? Is this what true faith looks like? It really stuck with me as challenging what I'd sort of been raised with, which was sort of Episcopalian as a perfunctory kind of thing. My dad had joined the Episcopalian church when we married my mom, because she said we have to do something, and he's a very much, you do what you're supposed to do. So he went to church because you're supposed to do that. Good people do that. He always wanted the shortest possible service so he could get out. You have to stay through it, but then you leave as soon as you can. And he was really saw it, I think, as a social obligation. So I sort of picked up on that. I think my mom looked at it more as, I like the relationships I build, I like the people, but I don't think either one of them was infused with what I was sort of thinking what real Christianity looks like, which is like the guy prostrating himself along the ground, right? This profession of faith that is unshakable. I didn't see that. So I think if you would have asked me in my 20s or 30s, you know, are your parents good Christians? I would have said, not really, not the way Christ wanted them to be. I don't see that in them. And I certainly didn't see it in myself. I decided when communion time came, or I'm sorry, confirmation time came, which in the Episcopal Church is sort of a deeper profession of faith around 12 to 14, I opted out and said, I don't want to do this. I think I had enough of a sense that this is me being asked to make a promise and a commitment, and I don't think I can honor that commitment, so I'm not going to do it. And there was a lot of blowback. It was kind of like, yeah, people do or whatever, but I was already starting to see I have enough of a core of what I believe that this is not something I want to do. I also found that faith was not helping answer some of the questions that were already really gnawing at me. Again, as I traveled a lot around the world, I saw really desperate poverty on a level you rarely see here. And how do you make sense of that? What does that mean? Am I just lucky? Am I better than these people? Is the fact that I'm doing what I do creating this? Is it really not as bad as it looks because it's all relative? And I wasn't getting any help from sort of mainstream Christianity, what to do about that, and well, do some direct aid and whatever, but not what does this really mean? What do I take away from this? So I was kind of on distant terms with religion through pretty much my later high school years. I would occasionally go be the dutiful son, get some dutiful son points, get the free lunch afterwards, but I was not invested in the religious experience. And then in college, we got in real distant terms. It's like, yeah, okay, religion's over there somewhere. I was in a very liberal college that did have a big Jewish population, which I never really run into before. So that was kind of interesting just to see Jewish traditions and some of the cultural norms. Also, there was a very, you know, I was raised in a time when gay and lesbian were kind of way out there, and the whatever was way beyond that was almost never heard of. And we had a bisexual dorm at this college, and a gay dorm and a lesbian dorm, and I was like, whoa, okay. I've never heard of these things, but okay. I interact with a lot of the people, like we're all just doing our thing. So that I think opened my mind up a little more, but not really sort of in a direct way, just kind of like, okay, things might be bigger than I think of. The one thing I do recall from college that kind of blew my mind a bit was I had an intro to sociology course, and we were talking about Émile Durkheim, who's a famous French sociologist, and he posited that crime is a necessary part of society. It serves a useful function. It shows where the boundaries are. It shows what happens when you transgress, and therefore you can't get rid of it. It's like saying, let's get rid of the bacteria in your gut. You can't actually do that. You would die if you did that. And I was like, wow, I've never thought of that. Like, this is a problem that can't be solved, maybe like it's supposed to be here. Well, I agree it's a problem, but you can't get rid of it. Is that even possible? And I lived with that ever since. I'm still wrestling with that one. So you could apply it to homelessness and a lot of other things we say are social ills that we wish we didn't have, but maybe that we have to have them. So, but I really liked having my mind kind of flipped over and like, wow, I never thought of that. This blows me away. So, but nothing more than that. It was religion was kind of like over there. I'm over here. I'm doing other things that are amusing. Got married. Started doing. We do the work week, and then the weekends we go to the mall and we can see a movie and go eat at Fridays and go buy stupid stuff that we don't really need. And we just, just do that over and over again. So I'm doing that for a long time, and then unfortunately I managed to fall into a Tai Chi class. And this was a large group of people who I think were looking for something different, because they were definitely into Tai Chi, not for the martial art cool moves, but kind of like trying to get my head somewhere else. And I remember we were doing the Chen long form, which takes like 15 minutes to do it. We worked on it for 2 years and could barely get halfway through it because it's a lot of moves and you have to memorize them all. But you start with you put your hands up, you come up, and you come down to what they call the state of Wu. And they describe it as it's, imagine you flip the coin. So if you flip a coin in the air, the exact moment it's not going up, but it's not going down, it's perfectly suspended. What is that exact moment? And can you get your body into that? Just like, oh, I like this challenge. This is good. This is like one I like upstairs. I picked up at the other UU church when they ring the gong. One of the exercises. Can you tell the exact instant when the gong is no longer ringing? Little bell. He's like a little more. I think I still hear it. I think I still hear it.
maybe too late, I missed it. And somewhere there was that moment, and I just really love that kind of stuff, but, so I was doing Tai Chi and kind of enjoying that, and then one day, everyone said, Larry's coming, Larry's gonna have Larry's class, you going to Larry's class? Oh, I can't wait to see Larry's class, it's gonna be so great, what are you gonna ask Larry? And I was like, "That's Larry's class." I was like, oh, you have to go to this, so my wife and I were like, okay, I guess we should go to Larry's class. So we give him this address, we drive out, and it's just in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey. It's a laundromat. There's a big room with all the machines and things, and then right next to a little adjunct room for like folding your laundry. There's a couple of tables. It's got like the vinyl fake wood wallpaper and like a ratty carpet, and it's just mobbed. There's a person at the door collecting the $10 from everyone coming into Larry's class. So go in and we're all in this room, like more than this many in a room, but no bigger than this, but it's crammed in there. And then in comes Larry, and Larry's this kind of 30-year-old something with kind of like messy hair and a little bit of a soft pot belly, and just kind of, just kind of casual in his, sweatpants or whatever. And he kind of walks in, there's kind of fervor in the room. He's the first and only sort of, I would guess, a guru is what you'd call him, the kind of the function he did. So he started out by doing the 5 stages of laughter, where we hold up a hand, we all just a little chuckle, and then we go to number 2, and we laugh a little harder. You force yourself to laugh, and you go all the way up to 5, and then down to 4 and 3, and up and down. It's an interesting exercise. I've never done it since, but it is a kind of almost a meditation. And then we did some meditation, and then we did a little yoga, and we did sort of belly breathing and things like that. And then he started taking the questions. So people just come in and say, Larry, I'm having trouble with my girlfriend, we can't communicate, what should I do? And then he would say something to them, and I really don't remember most of it because it was, at the time it's like, yeah, that seems okay, healthy stuff. It wasn't like, you have to fast deeply and, drink spinach things for 2 weeks. And then it was kind of like, hey, if you hold our hands and look to the eye, whatever, things that might be useful. But then someone said, Larry, what happens to us when we die? And he thought for a minute, he said, at the end of your life, you're going to be asked 2 things. What did you learn and who did you help? And I was like, oh, click. Absolutely. I feel that makes sense to me. I can orient my moral compass around that. I like knowledge. I believe fervently in knowledge and just knowing things. Although I think we get too compartmentalized in what is and isn't knowledge, and there's lots of variations, we cancel some of it out because it's not what we expected. But for me, that really helped. And the helping people was something I sort of a natural people pleaser in me anyways. I think from growing up and moving around a lot. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do these things. And the one practice I started right out of that was, okay, let me make my instinct then when I see a person in need, I'll just instinctually try to go help. So particularly like I see a car pulled over, just pull over and just see what it is. And a lot of times I poked around people's engines and didn't fix anything at all because I know nothing about mechanics. Trying to help them, support them. A lot of times I took people to gas stations, or gave them a ride or whatever. So that went on for a long time. I'm sorry to say that's kind of faded. Part of that is my life got more priorities where I felt like I can't ignore this. I'm on my way to work. I can't be late to work. I'm going to a rehearsal, or I just picked up dinner for the kids and it's going to get cold in the car and I can't stop. And I'm a little sad about that. But then cell phones came along and a lot of it became moot because people just call somebody, call a friend and get a tow truck. So, the helping part for me has really stayed with me. A lot of it involved just in the idea of generosity and just give things when you can. It'll probably work out for me. It always has. That may not be everyone's experience, but when someone says that, I need a little money, or who's going to pick up the tab for dinner? Okay, I got this. Let's see how it goes. Hey, can someone help move the tables? Sure. Okay, I'll be happy to pick up a table and move it. And I see a lot of that in this community, which is nice. I wouldn't say we can pride ourselves as UUs that we do this, because I think most religious organizations rely on a lot of volunteers and people just do things. But I think we're continuing a tradition that's worked pretty well of everyone helps make the things happen, whether it's the serving the coffee and things. So I had a little bit of a direction for my beliefs, but it really wasn't more rounded than that. So I had kids, and then it was like, oh, now I got to come up with some better stuff because my kids, they need a tradition or whatever. My parents, I was just pinning down recently, why did you really go to church? And my dad said, well, because you got to give your kids something to rebel against. So he used church as that. And it kind of worked as I rebelled against Christianity. I been in Charlotte for a few years. I poked my head in here once or twice back then, but just didn't make any instant connection, just kind of moved on. But now I had kids and you got to do something with the kids. So at that time I was up in the university area, and the Piedmont UU Church was in its mobile phase where it just moved from place to place. So they were renting a daycare center. So it was right down the road. So we went there one time and they were just so happy. She was like, oh my God, new people, we love you. We love you. We need you. We really need you to do things. Right. So we were instantly roped into, hey, can you help with childcare? Hey, can you help load the van at the end of service? And hey, you do music. Wow, that's great. Can you do some music next service? And so that need just pulled us in. And for years and years, I was sort of a stalwart in that community. I've served on pretty much every group they had. I was president, led the playground building committee, sang in the choir, did all kinds of music, did all kinds of things, and got a lot of positive feedback and connection, but I never really got any spiritual development out of it because I was too busy just doing the work of the church and not really making time. I enjoyed a few moments in the service, but half the time I'm like, oh, not enough chairs. I better go get a chair. Oop, who's got the collection baskets? Better make sure we get the collection baskets. I don't think anyone has them. But we sneak around in the back. And so spirituality was definitely just a gray area for me, but it was okay because I was working and making good money, and then other parts of life were clicking. I remember one time they asked me, Mark, they said, oh, you're such good UUs and such good parents. Can you give a class to people on how to be a good UU parent? And I was like, you're such a fraud. My kids are starting to rebel. They hit that middle school and a jaded kind of thing. I don't know if I want to be here. And I was like, I don't really know. I'm just making this up. I know that I'm giving a lot to the church, but I don't think that is really making me a good UU parent. So I weaseled out of that. Fortunately, I don't know how that would have gone, but so I was okay with that. But I was also starting to get a little more just needled again by this idea of have and have nots. And I had a lot. I worked at a bank doing IT. I made lots of money. I didn't live ostentatiously, but I lived very well and could take care of all my needs. And I kept hearkening back to the situation I saw in other countries, my own situation, the people around me. It's like the disparities just don't seem right. Why do I get 200,000 a year and this policeman gets 38,000? This teacher gets 40,000. This doesn't seem right. What is going on here? But I can't really force myself to walk away from it and say, give me less. I should have less. That doesn't seem right. So, so that was kind of going on. And then I had another paradox dropped in my lap. Thanks to NPR. I was listening to a show and it was all about humans and relationships and marriage. And the presenter said, okay, there's a fundamental problem here. As humans, we want connection and commitment, and therefore marriage, great. As humans, we want variety and new experiences, dating, great. So that's a paradox. I was like, okay, great. So how do you resolve this one? And they said, and it doesn't resolve. There is no resolution. You just live with it. And I was like, what? What? You live with this? You choose to live with this? A problem you can't solve? And for me, I was just like, I never thought of that before. I assumed all problems could be solved, right? You just had to figure out the right answer and wait long enough to do whatever, and you could solve anything. So to be told, no, there's problems that can actually never be solved. You're going to have to live with that tension, which is liberating in a way, is scary in a way, because like, I like everything to be neat and clean. This doesn't sound neat and clean. But it was helpful to hear that. And then in about 2012, about the time I came here, my marriage ended. And that kind of shattered my belief window that no, it all works out. You just do the right things. It will work out in the end, at least for most people and the people who are, doing it right. So I really had to confront an unmooring of a lot of things there. I left my house, changed churches. All of a sudden, I have a new relationship with my kids now. My ex has moved on to someone else, and just so that had me looking a lot more into what do I really believe, but was still not finding a whole lot of answers. So I dove into the dating world and started reinventing myself. And now I was a kind of a chubby, unathletic kid in pretty much my younger days. But now I'm skiing and I'm scuba diving and I'm running around the world. And it's great, and dating people, and I'm in this new church that's got a different vibe, and I'm doing things. So it was good. I never really thought about religious compatibility as I was dating and how that might blow up, because it just never came up in early dates. People don't tend to lead with what religion are you and what do you believe. But fortunately, I fell in love with a UU and married her, so I didn't have to have that. That's the door I left shut, thankfully, very much. So, but soon after we got married, about the same time, I stepped away from my 30-year career in IT, and that was a lot of personal searching, because so much of my identity had been based on, hey, I make a lot of money, I'm well respected, that's who I am at my core, I'm that guy, and now I'm not that guy anymore. So who am I? I think I'm fortunate that that happened for me at what I think is the world's midlife crisis. I think this is an almost unique time for the world where everyone's like, wait a second, maybe the whole script isn't actually right anymore, or maybe this is not going the way we all have been told it was gonna go. So I sort of stepped off the consumerist conveyor belt. I used to pride myself on being a platinum member, a frequent flyer, and, I'm an Admirals Club, I jet set around, whatever. And so stepping off of that, it let me, if you're old enough to know this one, the turn on, tune in and drop out, right? To just kind of like, maybe I'll just step aside from that world a little bit and just kind of watch it dispassionately. Yes, I can't just say I want to run off to, Europe every 3 weeks and just do that if I want to, which I used to be able to. I can't just go into Whole Foods, also known as Whole Paycheck, and just go, yeah, just load up the cart, $600 later. But I find I don't miss that. And I find that I've really made a fundamental change in how I view things. And I think what I'm seeing more and more is it's not just about me, it's about me, but it's also about not me and everything else. And aside from, a few basic things we all need, like you need some food and some shelter, etc. Once you go beyond that, the world's got a wide range of what people choose to exist in. The reality, there was a mendicant monk that came through UUCC a while back who, grown up in the US, but he'd become a mendicant Buddhist monk, and he couldn't take anything that wasn't offered to him. So he said, by the way, I have a terrible toothache. I'm just putting that out there in case anyone want, feel like a dentist would help me or whatever. If not, then I have a terrible toothache. And I was like, wow. So you just have to take with gratitude whatever's given to you. And if no one gives you anything, then you don't get anything. And so that kind of gave me a kind of perspective that we get very caught up in the consumerist model here. Like that's how the world works. You want things and then you get them, and that's how the world works. And a lot of the world doesn't actually work that way. So I find that the less I desire, the more peace I get. I thought I would be a wreck of, oh my gosh, we need more money and how I'm gonna make retirement work and like all these plans. And it's kind of gone the opposite way. I just find greater and greater peace in just sitting with what I do have, enjoying the things that I have, enjoying cooking my own meal. I probably get as much satisfaction as going off to a nice fancy dinner. And I'm much less emotionally invested in outcomes of things, both things I can control and things I can't control. Like the election, yes, I'm disappointed in the election, but I'm not distraught and inconsolate. I see so many countries living on, I keep looking at North Korea. How do you live with Kim Jong-il in this crazy reality? And yet they do, and they keep living that way. And probably their environmental footprint is much less than ours. So depending on how you want to judge that society, you could come up with a lot of different takeaways. So I'm finding that it's I'm kind of achieving the Buddhist detachment I thought I should be cultivating before. I never could seem to cultivate it. It's sort of cultivated maybe because I stopped trying. So and just what I want to close with is what I really appreciate about here is I'm hoping some of you are violently disagreeing. Going, I don't see that at all. That's different. My reality doesn't work like that. That's good. We don't want to all be the same. It's like the monocultures we've done with our trees and things. It does not work. We want a variety of opinions and differences. So I appreciate the fact that my journey is, I'm sure, not the same as your journey, but we can be together and share these journeys. And it's been a pleasure to talk with you. So.
Does anyone have questions? Are there any Zoom questions, Paul?
Yes, there is one Zoom question. What were the ages of your kids when you got a divorce? Well, I did not ask.
About 18 and 15. So just going into high school and about to come out of high school.
How did the music figure into your path?
What was the question?
how did music figure into my path? I had thought I was gonna be a professional musician, went to college for that, and actually got a degree in that. And then realized that it was burning me out and the lifestyle was gonna be very incompatible with other things I wanted. And my son's now being a professional musician, so every weekend, he's working Christmas, all the holidays and all that. I'm like, yeah, okay, these are the downsides. The upside is you can get up at noon, because you don't have to do rehearsal until 2. So I really appreciate the fact that I can do it sort of as a hobby and a side thing and just try lots of stuff but certain passages of music stir my soul still when I hear them and feel them. And I relish those chances, and sometimes it's just happens out of the blue. I'm like, wow, I feel that. Other times it's like, I'm gonna go to the concert. I know I love this music and I will love it. So. Yes,
Did Larry have any more to say about what happens after you die?
he did not, and he didn't even say specifically who's gonna ask you this. And I used to have a God vision in my head, this big imposing figure who would ask me these questions. I've kind of realized now, it's more that my energy that was spent on those things is gonna get released into the universe when my atoms deconstruct. I love the thing from last week, because I don't hear from why you want a physicist at your funeral?
Yeah.
You talk about your atoms, the same atoms that have always been, they become less orderly, and I'm looking forward in a way to being less orderly when that time comes. And the fact that my energy is still there, my atoms are still there, they just become less orderly. Bruce.
I want to ask you what Larry said about the book of Job. I can speak volumes on that, but
Yes.
anyway, what was the liberal art, I assume it was an institution you went to with.
Oberlin College in
Oh,
Ohio.
Very well.
I even got invited to the nude brunches back in the 1980s. Nude brunches in the vegetarian co-op and things, so yeah, it's a different world.
Oh, I was just wondering if any of the moves that since you moved around growing up, were any of those particularly difficult for you, or were you just so used to it, it didn't bother you?
I learned how to quickly adapt, but there were certain places I liked living less. But my big epiphany out of all of that was, I then had this idea, I need to move to the magical place where I'll fit and I'll click and then I belong there. And it wasn't until I learned how to put down roots somewhere that I realized, no, you root into a place and that's what makes you belong. It's not because you find the right place and then it's like, oh, I just belong here. You invest in it, they invest in you, and then the roots form. And I did not learn that from my parents because we never invested anywhere long enough to see that happen. So it wasn't until it was 5-10 years at UUCC and now here that I'm like, oh, okay, this is my place, these are my people, because I've made that effort, not because you just magically turned out to be the people I needed to see, so.
Yeah, maybe one more.
John, tell me again how you changed the tone on an Alcorn without bell.
It's all in the lips, just ask my wife.
Answer.